So this is part 3 of the chapter 52. I got carried away with the other biomes, well, different biomes on the land. So this one's lake. So basically, it's a body of water that could be like a pond, so a few meters um, within few meters in areas, or it could be the five Great Lakes in United States, which much deeper and much larger in size. So some of the well, actually, every single lakes are very very different from other. If they have similar geographic location and similar geographic condition, then they will be in much similar condition with them with the regional lakes. However, if we're talking about lakes in United States and then we're comparing to lakes in China, they might have a very different geographic condition, which will create a different chemical environment, different chemical geological features. I mean, different geological, not chemical, different geological features within lakes. So they're very different. These are a picture of some lakes, and you can see this one is much different than this one. This one has plants growing on the side of it, and lily pond. I think it's a lily plant. And right here you have very clear view. Very little, very minimal of grass or any plants along the side of the lake. Next one, we have wetland. So a wetland is a habitat that is inundated by water at least some of the time, and that supports plant adapted to the water saturated soil. So the soil is very wet, and because the wetlands are inundated all time, it kind of flood very frequently. So there's always flooding in wetland. So you can see these are kind of like where you go hunt ducks. Okay, so you have a lot of tall growing on what out of growing. I mean, plants growing out of water, tall plants growing out of water, and it's very wet, and the soil underneath the water is very wet as well. It floods very frequently. Sometimes sometimes it doesn't have that much water, but it floods very frequently. And it has very low. One of the characteristics is it has very low dissolved oxygens within their water. So the chemistry is a little bit different from the lake. Next one, streams and river. I think most of you have seen streams or rivers. The most prominent physical characteristics of stream and river is that they have currents. So it's not just a water body that doesn't change, but it actually flows. Okay, so with that, you have much more diversity within the stream and river. And because stream and river starting from the mountain, so you start with like higher altitude and eventually goes to lower altitude. So along the stream and river, you can actually see a progression of ecosystem changing from different altitudes. So that's one of the characteristics of streams and rivers. Next one, estuary. Estuary, it's a transition areas between river and the ocean, the sea, and because the seawater flows back into the different channels right here, see those channels, different channels of estuary, so the salinity can vary very spatially. So some part of estuary will be very salty. At least the water will be very salty as well as the soil. But some part of it would be very much like fresh water. So because such a drastic change and spatial differences, they actually have a very different ecosystem in estuary. Every single part of the actual estuary will have a very different ecosystem. Now this one's intertidal zone. Intertidal zone, basically it's whenever you want to go see, well, sea stars right here, and different kind of clams and barnacle, that kind of stuff. That's where you go. And because the tide comes and go, you have high tide and low tide. So the temperature right here varies greatly because the sunlight hits, then it becomes hotter. But once the water hits, when it's high tide, then the temperature drops. So you will see a very, very interesting different layers of oceanic or marine organism living around here because of that reason. Temperature vary greatly, and then salinity vary greatly, and the water, water vary greatly as well. And that's intertidal zone. Now you have open water. So this is basically what we see whenever I go on Google Earth or Google Map. You see, but really large ocean area, really large part of the Earth. It's covered by the open water, and oxygen level here is generally high because there's a lot of exchange, either rainfall or some kind of storm that would pump oxygens into the water, and then as the rain as the sun hits the water, it will evaporate, but you have this circulation going on with the oxygen. So that's kind of like one of the big characteristics. And this is basically most of our planet. So just keep in mind this is like a very, very specific, and it has very, very uh, unique ecosystem within this body of water. Coral reefs. Coral reef. One of the characteristics, it's very sensitive to temperature, and it's usually created by calcium carbonate skeleton of the corals. So that's why they name it coral reef. And because it's so sensitive to temperature, um, if there's any temperature change, it will affect coral reef most directly. And since you can see from this picture, you have all kinds of different organisms living here. Okay, just by looking at this picture, you have different corals just alongside right here, and then you have different kind of fish living around here. So just 1-2 degrees Celsius temperature change, it's gonna change this entire ecosystem. So it's very, very temperature sensitive, and it also has very high oxygen level because it's part of the ocean. And sometimes it has, actually most of the time, it's gonna have fresh water that puts in a lot of nutrients into this area. So this is coral reef. Marine benthic zone. Basically, this is the bottom part of the ocean. We're talking about on the floor of the ocean, the sea floor of the ocean, and a lot of time, you'll see different vent. Basically, they're underwater volcano. They have extremely hot water. They produce extremely hot water, but at the same time, there are some parts of it that does not have this underwater volcano, which will be very, very cold. And because due to the temperature, due to the density of the water, sometimes it can go as cold as third degree. Okay, it depends on different level of this within the ocean, and temperature varies, but it can go very, very low. And because there's a lot of energy being released by the underwater volcano, it also creates a very, very interesting chemical environment that only some of the most extreme, like these clam like community, they can survive and they actually thrive in these areas. And then you can see some of the crabs right here. They also adapt this colorless feature to their shells because they don't see sunlight much, and they have adapt within this environment and within this ecosystem of their own, this community of their own. So that's one of the characteristic. It could get extremely hot. There's basically no sunlight here, so the temperature varies just because there is underwater volcano around there or not. Okay, And finally, we come to the last slide. Biogeographic. Basically, it's talking about the geographic distribution of different kind of species. And the factors are four different parts. Dispersal, so how far are they traveling from their origin area? Behavior, so how do they behave when behave with their environment, behave with their habitat? And then there's the two factors that we talked about previously or earlier in part one of the video: biotic factors, biotic influences, and abiotic factors. So temperatures, water, oxygen, salinity, sunlight, rock, and salt. A biotic factor would be food sources. Do they need to compete with food sources? Pollination. Insects need to pollinate flower, and then they also need to prevent predator from eating them. So those are the four factors that kind of creates different kind of biogeographic regions. And this is it. This is chapter 52 again. Video talks about biosphere, and in the later videos we will be talking about different part of the ecology system. And so yeah, hope this video helps you, and we will see you later.